The envelope sat on the kitchen table like a death sentence. White paper, black letters, final notice. Evelyn Thorne's hands trembled as she picked it up for the 100th time that morning. The words hadn't changed. They never did. Foreclosure. 24 hours. Vacate the premises. 72 years old, and it had come to this. The first light of dawn crept through the kitchen window, pale and cold painting, frost patterns across the glass. January in Montana didn't forgive. The temperature outside hovered somewhere around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and the farmhouse groaned with every gust of wind, its old bones protesting the weight of another winter. Evelyn set the envelope down. Her fingers moved to the small pile of cash she'd counted 3 times already. $340, every penny she had left in the world. Not enough to save the house, not enough to start over. Not enough for anything except maybe a week in some roadside motel before the money ran out and the real darkness began. She stood slowly, her knees aching with the familiar protest of age and too many years standing on hospital floors. The kitchen was cold. She turned the heat down to save money, a futile gesture now. The coffee pot sat empty on the counter. She couldn't afford to waste coffee on a day like this. Couldn't afford much of anything anymore. Through the window, she could see the barn listing slightly to the left, its roof sagging under years of neglect. The fence posts leaned at drunken angles. The fields lay buried under snow dormant and useless. 15 years ago, this place had been alive. Warren had kept everything running, fixing what broke, painting what faded, breathing life into every corner. Then Warren died. Evelyn moved to the mantel where a photograph sat in a simple wooden frame. Warren Thorne, 47 years old, forever frozen in time. His firefighter's uniform crisp and clean, his smile wide and genuine, his eyes holding that particular light that came from a man who knew his purpose. He died doing what he loved, saving people. A warehouse fire on the edge of town. 3 people trapped inside. Warren went in, got them out. The roof collapsed on his way back. The chief said he died instantly. Evelyn knew better. She'd been an ER nurse for 30 years. She knew what fire did to the human body, knew what died instantly really meant. But she'd nodded and thanked them and buried her husband with full honors. That was 15 years ago. 15 years of silence in a house built for 2. Evelyn's fingers traced the edge of the frame. Warren had always said the same thing when someone questioned why he ran into burning buildings, why he helped strangers, why he gave so much to people who'd never repay him. What we give comes back, Evie. Maybe not from them, but it comes back. She'd believed him once. Now she wondered if he'd been wrong all along. The telephone on the wall mocked her with its silence. She could call Michael, her son, 45 years old and living his California life in San Diego, probably sitting in some coffee shop right now, probably checking his phone, probably having no idea his mother was about to lose everything. She picked up the receiver, put it down, picked it up again. Her finger hovered over the numbers. She knew them by heart. Hadn't dialed them in 12 years, but she knew them. 12 years since the funeral. 12 years since Michael stood in this kitchen and said the words that still cut like broken glass. You killed him, Mom. Your obsession with helping every stranger who knocked on our door. Dad died helping some random person because you taught him that's what mattered. You loved strangers more than you loved us. He'd left that night, never came back, never called. Evelyn set the phone down gently as if it might shatter. No, she wouldn't call, wouldn't burden him, wouldn't give him another reason to resent the mother who apparently cared more about strangers than her own family. Maybe he'd been right. She moved through the house like a ghost, her footsteps echoing on the wooden floors. The living room felt cavernous. Too much space for one person. Too many empty chairs. Too many memories pressed into the walls. She stopped at the hallway closet. Her hand rested on the doorknob for a long moment. Then she opened it. The lockbox sat on the top shelf exactly where she'd left it 15 years ago. Warren's lockbox. She took it down, felt its familiar weight, carried it to the kitchen table, and set it beside the foreclosure notice. The key was in her pocket, always in her pocket. Some part of her had always known this day would come. She unlocked it. Inside, Warren's service revolver lay in its foam cutout, cleaned and oiled, exactly as he'd left it. Beside it, a single box of ammunition. Beside that, his firefighter's badge, his wedding ring, and a folded American flag from the funeral. Evelyn stared at the gun for a long time. 30 years in the ER had taught her exactly how these things worked, where to aim, what it would feel like, how long it would take. She'd seen enough gunshot wounds to know the mechanics of it all. Quick, certain, final. Her hands moved with the muscle memory of someone who'd handled weapons before, though never with this intention. She loaded the revolver. 6 rounds, only needed one, but her nurse's mind insisted on doing things properly. She set it on the table, pulled out a piece of paper, wrote 3 words. I am sorry. Nothing else. Who was there to explain to Michael wouldn't care? The town had forgotten she existed years ago. The bank just wanted their money. Sorry seemed like enough. Evelyn sat back in the chair, the gun within easy reach, and looked around the kitchen one more time. 43 years in this house. 43 years of coffee in this kitchen. Meals at this table, laughter that once filled these walls. All of it ending tomorrow morning. Unless she ended it tonight. Her hand moved toward the gun, stopped, moved again, stopped again. Something made her stand. Some last vestige of the woman she'd been, the nurse who'd saved over 400 lives. The person who'd spent 3 decades putting broken people back together. She walked to the bedroom, to the closet where she kept the things she couldn't bear to throw away, but couldn't bear to look at either. The shoebox sat on the top shelf. She took it down. Inside, photographs. Dozens of them. Not of Warren or Michael or family vacations. These were different. Polaroids mostly. Some printed on cheap photo paper. Some just scribbled notes. The faces of strangers. A young man with hollow eyes and track marks on his arms standing in her kitchen holding a bowl of soup. On the back, written in her handwriting, Jeremy, October 2011, drove him to rehab. Hope he made it. A woman in her 30s, bruised face, frightened smile. Sarah, June 2013, stayed 3 nights, gave her money for bus ticket to her sisters in Oregon. A teenager, maybe 16, skinny as a rail, wearing Warren's old coat. The note read, no name given, February 2014. Fed him for 3 days. Disappeared on the 4th morning. Left note saying, thank you, angel lady. More faces, more stories. More moments when she'd opened her door to people who had nowhere else to go. 47 of them. She'd counted once years ago when Warren was still alive, and she'd tried to explain why she couldn't stop. Why every knock on the door felt like a call she had to answer. It's who we are, Evie, Warren had said. The world needs angels, even small ones. Small angels. Is that what they'd been? Or had Michael been right? Had they wasted their kindness on people who'd never mattered, never appreciated it, never even remembered their names? Evelyn looked at the faces in the photographs. Strangers, every one. She didn't know where they were now. Didn't know if any of them had survived, thrived, or simply moved on to the next crisis. Didn't know if any of it had mattered at all. She put the lid back on the box, carried it back to the kitchen, set it beside the gun. 3 objects on the table now: the foreclosure notice, the suicide note, the box of strangers, past, present, and the question of whether there'd be a future. The clock on the wall ticked toward 8 in the morning. Evelyn made a decision. She put the gun back in the lockbox, locked it, put it away. Not yet. One more day. She'd give herself one more day. Tomorrow morning, when the bank came, when they took the house, when the last piece of Warren's legacy crumbled to nothing, then she'd decide. But not today. Today she'd go to town, buy what she could afford, come back, wait for whatever came next. She pulled on her heavy coat, the one with the broken zipper she'd never gotten around to fixing, wrapped a scarf around her neck, found her gloves mismatched but warm enough. The keys to the old pickup sat in the bowl by the door, next to unpaid bills and junk mail. The truck started on the 3rd try, coughing black smoke into the frozen morning air. It needed work. Everything needed work. But it ran, and that was enough. The drive into Redemption Falls took 20 minutes on roads that hadn't been plowed yet. Snow from last week's storm still lined the ditches, and ice made the curves treacherous. Evelyn drove slowly, carefully, the way old people drive when they know one mistake could be their last. The town looked the same as it always did. Small, quiet, forgettable. Main Street stretched 3 blocks lined with businesses that barely survived: a diner, a hardware store, a post office, a church, a bank. The bank, Montana First Bank, where tomorrow morning someone would sit across a desk from her and explain in polite terms that she had to leave her home. Evelyn drove past it without stopping. She parked in front of Hallstrom's General Store, the only grocery in 30 miles. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, a cheerful sound that felt wrong in her current state. Inside, the familiar smell of old wood and packaged goods. Mrs. Hallstrom behind the counter reading a magazine. She looked up as Evelyn entered. "Morning, Evelyn." "Morning, Ruth." That was it, the entire conversation. Ruth went back to her magazine. Evelyn picked up a basket and moved through the aisles, counting pennies in her head. Soup ingredients. She could make a pot that would last a week if she was careful. Carrots, potatoes, an onion, celery, a small package of chicken marked down because it was near expiration. Bread, flour, salt. She did the math 3 times, came to $32 and change. At the register, Ruth rang everything up without comment. No small talk, no questions about how Evelyn was doing. No acknowledgement that this might be the last time Evelyn shopped here. $32.15, Ruth said. Evelyn counted out the bills. Exact change. She took her bags and left. The bell jingled again. Cheerful, mocking. Outside, the cold hit her like a fist. She loaded the groceries into the truck and was about to climb in when she heard voices. Lorraine Pritchard stood across the street with 2 other women, all bundled in expensive coats that actually matched their gloves. They were talking heads close together, breath puffing, white in the frozen air. Evelyn heard her name. "Terrible about the Thorne place. Foreclosure, I heard." Well, what did she expect all those years feeding every drifter who came through town? "My Herald says she gave money to at least 9 families over the years. Never collected. No wonder she's broke. Charity's one thing, but there's being foolish. And after poor Warren died trying to save that person, you'd think she'd learn." Laughter, not cruel exactly, just dismissive. The laughter of people who'd never understood and never would. Evelyn stood by her truck, frozen in place, grocery bags in hand. Lorraine saw her. Their eyes met across the street. Lorraine's smile faltered. She said something to her friends. They glanced over. One of them waved a small gesture that might have been apologetic or might have been nothing. Then they walked away. Didn't cross the street. Didn't come over to ask if Evelyn needed help. Didn't acknowledge that they had been talking about her. Just walked away. Evelyn got in the truck, started the engine, drove home in silence. The house was exactly as she'd left it. Cold, empty, waiting. She put the groceries away, put water on for tea, sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. The afternoon crawled by in painful increments. She tried to read, couldn't focus. Tried to watch television. Couldn't find anything that didn't feel like noise. Tried to sleep. Couldn't close her eyes without seeing tomorrow morning the bank officers, the boxes she didn't have, the moving truck she couldn't afford. At 3 in the afternoon, the phone rang. Evelyn stared at it for 5 rings before picking up. Mrs. Thorne, a man's voice, young, professional, the kind of voice that delivered bad news with practiced sympathy. "This is Daniel Whitmore from Montana First Bank. I'm calling to confirm tomorrow's appointment, 9 a.m. sharp. We'll need you to have all personal belongings removed from the premises by noon. The locks will be changed at 12:15. "I understand," Evelyn said. Her voice sounded hollow even to herself. "If you need additional time to arrange moving services, we can potentially extend." "I don't need more time." "I see. Well, we'll see you tomorrow then, Mrs. Thorne. And we're very sorry about this." He wasn't sorry. Nobody was sorry. They were just doing their jobs, following procedures, moving on with their lives. Evelyn hung up without saying goodbye. She stood in the kitchen as the winter light faded, watching shadows lengthen across the floor. At 4:30, she turned on the radio, an old habit from when Warren was alive, and they'd listen to the news together every evening. The weatherman's voice crackled through the static. Severe blizzard warning in effect for all of northwestern Montana. Winter storm system moving in from Canada expected to bring heavy snow, high winds, and dangerous wind chills. Temperatures dropping to -15 degrees Fahrenheit. Whiteout conditions likely. Residents are advised to stay indoors, avoid all unnecessary travel, and prepare for possible power outages. This is a life-threatening vestige event. I repeat it, stay indoors. Do not attempt travel after 6 p.m. Evelyn looked out the window. The sky had turned a strange shade of gray-green, the color of bruises and approaching violence. The wind had picked up, rattling the shutters, sending snow devils spinning across the fields. A storm. Of course there'd be a storm. Even nature wanted to mark this last night with drama. She moved through the house doing what Warren had taught her years ago. Check the flashlights. Candles in easy reach. Extra blankets. Fill the bathtub with water in case the pipes froze. Bring in extra firewood. The woodpile was nearly empty. She'd been rationing it, trying to make it last. Now she brought in what was left, stacking it beside the fireplace. It wouldn't be enough for a long storm, but then again, she wouldn't need it for long. By 6 o'clock, the storm had arrived in earnest. Snow fell in thick curtains driven sideways by wind that howled like something alive and furious. The temperature plummeted. The house groaned and creaked, settling into itself against the onslaught. Evelyn lit a fire in the fireplace. The flames caught slowly, reluctantly, but eventually grew into something warm and hypnotic. She sat in Warren's old armchair, pulled a blanket over her lap, and watched the fire dance. This was how she'd spend her last night in this house, alone, watching flames, waiting for morning. But something made her stand. That same restless energy that had kept her moving all day, that refusal to simply surrender even though surrender was the only logical option. She went to the kitchen, started pulling out ingredients. Carrots, potatoes, onion, celery, chicken. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, the muscle memory of someone who'd cooked thousands of meals. Chop the vegetables. Brown the chicken. Add water. Season. Simmer. Why was she making soup? Who was it for? No one was coming. No one would knock on the door in this storm. No traveler would be desperate or foolish enough to be on the roads tonight. But she made it anyway, because it was what she did, because it was who she was, even now, even at the end. Because Warren's voice in her head said, "Always be ready to help, Evie. You never know when someone might need it." The soup bubbled on the stove, filling the house with smells that reminded her of better times. She set the table, one bowl, one spoon, one chair. Then on impulse, she set a second place. For Warren's ghost, maybe. For the memory of what this house used to be. For the foolish hope that someone somewhere might still need what she had to give. The clock struck 7. The storm intensified, wind screaming around the corners of the house, snow piling against the windows in drifts that grew taller by the minute. Evelyn ate her soup slowly, savoring each spoonful, wondering if this would be her last meal in this kitchen. Probably. She washed her bowl, put it away, stared at the second place setting she'd laid out. Felt ridiculous. Put it away too. Then she walked to the bedroom, to the closet, to the lockbox, took out the gun, brought it back to the living room, set it on the table beside the armchair. Sat down. The fire crackled. The storm raged. The house settled around her like a living thing preparing to die. Evelyn picked up the gun, felt its weight, cold metal, heavy with purpose. She'd made her decision. Tonight. No point waiting for morning, for the humiliation of being escorted from her own home, for the pity in the bank officer's eyes, for the shame of having nowhere to go. Better to end it here, on her terms, in Warren's chair, in the house they'd built together. She checked the cylinder. 6 rounds, still loaded from this morning. Her finger moved to the trigger. Outside, the storm screamed. And then, a sound. At first, Evelyn thought it was thunder, some strange winter thunder rolling across the mountains. But it didn't fade. It grew. A low, deep rumble that seemed to come from the earth itself, rising up through the floor, vibrating in her chest. Not thunder. Engines. Evelyn's hand froze on the gun. The sound grew louder. Multiple engines. Heavy, powerful, cutting through the storm like something unstoppable. She stood slowly, the gun still in her hand, and moved to the window. Through the curtain of snow, through the darkness, lights appeared. Headlights. 1, 2, 5, 10, 20. 20 motorcycles cutting through the blizzard, engines, roaring snow, spraying from their tires, moving in formation like a military convoy. They turned off the highway onto her long driveway. Coming here. Coming to her house. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Fear flooded through her veins, cold and sharp. Who were they? What did they want? Why here? Why now? The motorcycles circled her house, their headlights throwing wild shadows across the walls. The sound was deafening, a thunder that drowned out even the storm. Then one by one the engines cut off. Silence crashed down, broken only by the wind. Evelyn stood frozen at the window, the gun heavy in her hand, watching as dark figures dismounted from their bikes. 20 of them. Big men in leather jackets, their faces hidden beneath helmets and scarves, their movements slow and stiff with cold. They gathered at her gate, stood there, waiting. Then one of them moved forward, walked up her path, climbed her porch steps, raised a gloved fist, and knocked. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Evelyn didn't move, couldn't move. The knock came again, harder, more insistent. Then a voice, deep, rough, desperate. "Please, ma'am, we're freezing out here. Please, hey." Evelyn looked down at the gun in her hand, looked at the door. The voice came again. "Ma'am, I'm begging you, we're dying in this storm. Just let us inside, just for the night. Please." Behind him another voice, younger, weaker, coughing violently. "Ghost, I can't feel my hands anymore." More coughing, the sound of someone collapsing against something. Desperate gasps for air. Evelyn's nurse instincts flared to life despite everything. That cough, she knew that sound. Hypothermia, maybe worse, but her hand tightened on the gun. 20 strangers, in the middle of a blizzard, at her door, on the last night of her life. What if they were dangerous? What if this was how it ended, not by her own hand, but at theirs? The knock came a third time. "Ma'am, please. I know how this looks. I know you're scared, but we're not here to hurt you. We're just trying to survive. The storm caught us. The roads are gone. Your light was the only one we could see. Please." Evelyn closed her eyes. Warren's voice echoed in her memory. "Always help the traveler Evie, even if he looks like an enemy. The road changes a man. Sometimes all he needs is a place to rest." She opened her eyes, looked at the gun, looked at the door, made her choice. She walked to the bedroom, put the gun back in the lockbox, locked it, put it away. If she was going to die tonight, she wouldn't die a coward. She wouldn't die with her last act being a refusal to help someone in need. She walked back to the front door, put her hand on the lock, paused. "Lord," she whispered, "if this is how it ends, let it be quick." She unlocked the door, turned the handle, pulled it open. Wind and snow exploded into her house, a blast of cold that stole her breath. The man on her porch stood silhouetted against the storm, tall and broad, his leather jacket crusted with ice, his face hidden beneath a helmet frosted white. He pulled the helmet off. Evelyn saw his face, weathered, scarred, a beard heavy with ice. Eyes that looked ancient despite the relatively young face. Eyes that had seen things no one should see. But not cruel eyes, desperate eyes. He spoke and his voice was gentler than she'd expected. "Thank you, ma'am. God bless you. Thank you." Behind him, the 19 others waited, shivering in the storm. Evelyn stepped aside. "Come in," she heard herself say. "All of you, come in." They entered like shadows, one by one, bringing the cold and the storm with them. Snow fell from their jackets onto her floor. Ice cracked and fell from their beards. They smelled of leather and gasoline and the sharp metallic scent of extreme cold. They were enormous, these men, too large for her small house. Their presence filled every corner, displaced the air, made everything feel smaller and more crowded. Evelyn backed against the wall as they filed past her, heart racing, her mind screaming that she'd made a terrible mistake. The leader was the last to enter. He closed the door behind him, shutting out the storm, and the sudden silence was almost as loud as the wind had been. 20 men stood in her living room, dripping melting snow, breathing hard, their faces showing the ravages of the storm. They looked at her. She looked at them. No one spoke. Finally, the leader broke the silence. "Ma'am, I'm Silas. These are my brothers. We're Iron Angels, a motorcycle club. We were trying to make Deadwood before the storm hit. Didn't make it. Your house was the only light we could see for 20 miles. I swear to you, we mean no harm. We just need shelter until the storm passes. We'll stay in one room. Won't touch anything. Won't cause any trouble. Just, please, let us stay." Evelyn's throat was dry. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. You can stay." Relief flooded their faces. Some of the men sagged against the walls. One of them wiped at his eyes, and Evelyn couldn't tell if it was melting ice or tears. Thank you, Silas said again. Thank you so much. Evelyn swallowed hard, forced her voice to steady. Take off your wet things. I'll bring blankets and there's soup. On the stove, you must be hungry. One of the men older than the others with gray in his beard and something that looked like medical insignia on his jacket spoke up. Ma'am, you don't have to feed us. Shelter's more than enough. I said there's soup, Evelyn replied, and there was steel in her voice now. The nurse, the woman who'd spent 30 years giving orders in emergency rooms. You'll eat. Sit down. They sat, on her couch, her chairs, the floor, anywhere there was space. They moved carefully, trying to be small, despite their size, trying not to break anything. Evelyn went to the kitchen on shaking legs. Her hands trembled as she ladled soup into every bowl she owned. 20 men. She had 12 bowls. She'd have to do this in shifts. She brought out the first round, handed them to the nearest men. They accepted the bowls with both hands as if receiving something precious. One of them, a man with tattoos crawling up his neck and tears on his cheeks, whispered, "My mother used to make soup like this." Evelyn didn't know what to say, so she said nothing, just went back for more. As she served them, she looked at their faces. Really looked. These weren't the monsters she'd feared. These were men. Exhausted men, frozen men, desperate men. And more than that, on one man's jacket she saw a patch, Purple Heart. On another's a tattoo, Semper Fi. On a third's dog tags hanging outside his shirt. Veterans, most of them, maybe all of them. "You're military," she said. It wasn't a question. Silas nodded. "Most of us, Army, Marines, Navy, different wars but same scars." Evelyn's hand stopped shaking. "My husband was a firefighter and paramedic," she said quietly. 20 years. He saved lives in fires, car wrecks, emergencies. He understood what it meant to serve. Something changed in the room, a softening, a recognition. Silas looked at her with new eyes. "Was Gus," he said gently. "He died 15 years ago. Saving someone, that's what he did." "I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am." Evelyn nodded, went back to the kitchen. When she returned with more soup, she noticed one of the youngest men sitting apart from the others. He was shivering violently despite the blanket someone had draped over his shoulders. His face was pale, lips tinged blue. His breathing came in short, sharp gasps. As Evelyn watched, he tried to stand, made it halfway up, collapsed. The room exploded into action. Men jumped to their feet. Someone caught the young man before he hit the floor. Others crowded around, calling his name. Cole, stay with us. He's burning up. Feel his forehead. Get him closer to the fire." Someone call. "There's no service, storms, too bad." "Oh, and then what do we do?" They turned to look at Evelyn, panic in their eyes, waiting for her to tell them what to do to help to fix this, and something inside her clicked into place. 30 years of training, 412 lives saved. Instinct buried beneath years of depression and isolation suddenly roared back to life. She moved forward, and her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Everyone back, now. Give him space, give me space." They obeyed instantly, startled by the command in her voice. Evelyn knelt beside the young man, pressed 2 fingers to his wrist, counted heartbeats. Too fast, thready. She put her palm on his forehead. Burning hot. She pulled back his eyelids, checked his pupils, listened to his breathing. Shallow, rapid, dangerous. Hypothermia transitioning to fever. Probably pneumonia, possibly worse. She looked up at the men surrounding her. "I need blankets, all of them. And pillows. Someone start water boiling. I need clean towels. Someone else, I need you to stoke that fire until this room is 90 degrees. Move." They moved. Evelyn worked with steady hands, doing what she'd done 1,000 times before. She stripped the wet clothes off the young man, wrapped him in dry blankets, propped him up to help his breathing. She felt for signs of frostbite, checked his extremities, monitored his pulse. The water arrived. She soaked towels in warm water, not hot, and pressed them to his chest, his neck, his wrists, rewarming him gradually. Too fast, and she could send him into shock. The men watched in silence, their faces showing awe and something else. Recognition. Silas knelt beside her. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "where did you learn to do this?" Evelyn didn't look up from her patient. "ER trauma nurse, County General Hospital, 30 years. I've treated hypothermia, pneumonia, gunshot wounds, stabbings, overdoses, heart attacks, and every other way the human body can break. This boy is in trouble, but I've seen worse, much worse. She pressed two fingers to Cole's neck, checking his pulse again. His name's Cole, Silas said. Cole Morrison. He's 23. We found him when he was 13 living on the streets. Took him in. He's family. Well, your family is about to be very sick for the next few days, but he'll live. The fever's the real danger now. We need to keep him hydrated, keep him warm but not too warm, and watch for respiratory distress. She finally looked up at Silas. I'll need help. Someone to watch him tonight. Someone who can follow instructions exactly. I'll do it, said the older man, with the medical insignia. I'm Isaac, used to be a Navy corpsman. I can help. Evelyn nodded. Good. You and I will take shifts. She looked around at the other 18 men, seeing them clearly now. Not as threats, not as strangers, as patients who needed her, as people she could help, as purpose walking through her door on the last night she'd planned to be alive. The rest of you, she said, her voice steady and sure. Get out of those wet clothes. There's more soup in the kitchen. Eat. Get warm. Try to sleep if you can. The storm's going to last all night, but you're safe here. One of the men's scarred face and kind eyes spoke up. Ma'am, we can't thank you enough. Opening your door to strangers in a storm like this, that's a rare thing. Evelyn looked down at Cole, at his young face slack with fever, at the rise and fall of his chest. It's the life she was fighting to preserve. It's what we do, she said quietly, what we're supposed to do, help each other survive. She didn't tell them that 4 hours ago she'd had a gun in her hand. Didn't tell them they'd saved her life just as surely as she was saving Cole's. Didn't tell them that for the first time in 15 years, she felt like Evelyn Thorne again. Not the forgotten widow. Not the woman about to lose everything, but the nurse, the healer, the woman who saved lives. The storm howled outside, shaking the windows, piling snow against the walls. But inside, in the small farmhouse at the edge of Redemption Falls, 21 people sat together in warmth and safety. And Evelyn Thorne, 72 years old, scheduled to lose her home in less than 12 hours, knelt beside a dying boy and fought death with the same fierce determination she'd brought to every battle of her career. Her hands didn't shake anymore. Her purpose had returned. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the exhaustion and the fear and the uncertainty of what tomorrow would bring, she felt Warren's presence like a hand on her shoulder. Always helped the traveler Evie. She had, and somehow impossibly, she was the one who'd been saved. The night deepened around them. Outside, the blizzard raged with the fury of something alive and vengeful. Wind hammered against the farmhouse walls, searching for weakness, finding cracks exploiting every gap. Snow piled higher against the windows, blocking out the world, sealing them inside this small pocket of warmth and light. Inside, the fire crackled and hissed, throwing dancing shadows across walls that hadn't seen this many people in 15 years. Evelyn sat cross-legged on the floor beside Cole Morrison, one hand resting lightly on his forehead, monitoring his temperature, the way she'd monitored hundreds of patients over 3 decades. Her joints protested the position. 72-year-old knees weren't meant for sitting on hard floors. But she'd stayed in worse positions for longer shifts, and this boy needed her attention more than her body needed comfort. His fever had broken an hour ago. The crisis had passed. Now it was just a matter of keeping watch, making sure he stayed hydrated, ensuring the pneumonia didn't surge back with renewed violence. Around the room, the 19 other bikers had settled into whatever space they could find. Some sat on her couch, others in the kitchen chairs they'd dragged in, a few sprawled on the floor with jackets rolled into makeshift pillows. They were quiet now, the initial chaos of arrival having given way to exhausted relief. But none of them slept. They watched her. Watched Cole, waited. Isaac, the former Navy corpsman, sat nearby with a basin of water and clean towels ready to assist if needed. He'd been good help, efficient, calm, the kind of medical partner she'd relied on in the ER when things got bad. Evelyn dipped a cloth in cool water, wrung it out, and pressed it gently to Cole's neck. His pulse was stronger now, steadier. The dangerous rapid flutter had smoothed into something closer to normal. He would live. She'd saved another one, 413. The number echoed in her mind. She'd stopped counting years ago after Warren died, after the hospital forced her into retirement, after the world made it clear that her usefulness had expired. But the number had stayed with her anyway. 412 lives saved over 30 years of emergency medicine. Now 413. Cole stirred beneath her touch. His eyelids fluttered. A soft moan escaped his lips. Easy, Evelyn murmured. You're safe. Don't try to move yet. His eyes opened, unfocused at first, pupils still dilated from fever and exhaustion. Then they found her face and locked on. Am I dead? He whispered. Despite everything, Evelyn felt a smile tug at her lips. She'd heard that question before. Many times. No, you're very much alive, though you gave away quite a scare. Cole's gaze wandered around the room, taking in the other bikers, the fireplace, the unfamiliar surroundings. Confusion clouded his features. Where, My home, Evelyn said. You and your friends needed shelter from the storm. I let you in, you collapsed. Pneumonia, hypothermia, possibly both. But you're going to be fine. His eyes came back to her face, studied her, and something shifted in his expression. Recognition. Impossible recognition. I know you, Bao, he said. Evelyn shook her head. I don't think so. We just met tonight. No. His voice was stronger now, more certain. I know you. Your eyes. I remember your eyes. Around the room, the other bikers had gone very still, listening. Cole tried to sit up. Evelyn pressed a hand to his chest. Lie still. You're not strong enough yet. But he pushed against her hand, determination overriding weakness. He managed to prop himself on one elbow, breathing hard from the effort. You're her, he said, the angel lady. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Cole reached into the pocket of his jeans, fumbled with shaking fingers, and pulled out a battered leather wallet. From inside, he extracted a photograph. Old, creased. The colors faded from years of being carried and looked at. He held it out to her. Evelyn took it with trembling hands. The photograph showed her. Younger, maybe 62, 63 years old, standing in this very kitchen, smiling. And beside her, a skinny teenage boy, in clothes too large for his frame, holding a bowl of soup, his face hollow with hunger, but his eyes bright with something like hope. She remembered. February 2014, the coldest winter in 20 years. A knock on the door late at night. A boy, maybe 13 years old, frozen and terrified, begging for food. She'd fed him, let him sleep in the spare room, gave him Warren's old winter coat because the child had nothing but a threadbare jacket. Kept him for 3 days while the weather raged outside. On the 4th morning, he'd been gone. No note, no goodbye, just vanished like he'd never existed. Except for this photograph. She'd taken it on the 2nd day on impulse with the old Polaroid camera Warren had loved. She'd given the boy the only copy, or so she'd thought. You kept it, she whispered. Every day for 10 years, Cole said. His voice cracked with emotion. Every single day. You saved my life, ma'am. I was running from a foster home where things were bad. I was going to die out there. I knew it. Didn't care. Thought dying frozen would be better than going back. Tears ran down his cheeks, mixing with the sweat of fever. But you opened your door. You didn't ask questions. Didn't call the police. Just fed me. Let me sleep somewhere safe. Treated me like I was worth something. Evelyn's own tears fell now, landing on the photograph, blurring the image of her younger self. You left, she said. I woke up and you were gone. I worried. For months I worried. Wondered if you were alive. Wondered if I should have done more. I left because I was scared, Cole said. Scared you'd call social services. Scared they'd send me back. But I never forgot. I kept the picture. And when Ghost found me, 2 days later, half dead at a truck stop, the first thing I told him when I woke up was about the angel lady in Montana who saved me. Silas stood from where he'd been sitting against the wall, moved closer. His face showed something between wonder and reverence. You told me that story 100 times, kid, he said quietly, about the widow who took you in, who fed you and clothed you and asked for nothing. I've been trying to find her for 10 years, searching every small town in Montana, asked at every diner, every gas station, every sheriff's office. He looked at Evelyn, and his eyes were bright with moisture. We all thought it was a fever dream, thought you were something his hypothermic mind had invented, a guardian angel that couldn't possibly be real. I'm not an angel, Evelyn said. Her voice was barely audible. I'm just someone who tried to help. You did more than help, Cole said. You showed me that kindness existed, that someone could care about a throwaway kid with no name and no future. You gave me hope. He struggled to sit up fully. Isaac moved to help him, propping pillows behind his back. When Ghost took me in, Cole continued, when the Iron Angels became my family, I told them all about you, about the Angel Lady, and every man Ghost saved after that, every lost soul he brought into the club, I told them too. Your story spread through our chapter, through other chapters, through the whole network of motorcycle clubs across 5 states. Evelyn shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't understand. I just gave you soup and a bed, that's all. That's everything, Silas said. He knelt down beside her, putting himself at eye level. Ma'am, do you know what you are to us? You're the legend, the angel of Highway 90. For 10 years, every traveler we've helped, we've done it because of you. Because Cole's story reminded us that one small act of kindness can save a life, can change everything. Around the room, the other bikers were nodding. Some were crying openly now, these hard men with scarred faces and tattooed arms weeping like children. Evelyn looked at their faces, saw something in them she hadn't seen earlier. Not just gratitude, something deeper. Recognition, as if they'd been searching for something all their lives and had finally found it. How many, she asked. Her voice was steady now, the nurse's voice, the one that demanded truth. How many travelers did I help over the years? Silas pulled out his phone. No service, but he didn't need it. He opened a notes app, showed her a list of names. We've been tracking this, he said, trying to verify the legend, talking to people who claimed they'd met you. We have documentation of 47 travelers who passed through this area and received help from a widow matching your description over the past 15 years. 47, the exact number she'd counted in her shoebox of photographs. 47 people, Silas continued, who went back into the world and told others about your kindness, who paid it forward, who became better because you showed them mercy when they needed it most. He scrolled through his phone, showing her names, dates, brief notes. Jeremy Walsh, heroin addict. You fed him in 2011, drove him to rehab. He's been clean for 13 years now, runs a halfway house in Billings. Sarah Dennison, domestic violence survivor. You sheltered her in 2013. She made it to her sisters in Oregon. Now she runs a women's shelter. Marcus Tate, veteran with PTSD. You talked him down from suicide in 2016. He started a veterans crisis hotline. Name after name, story after story. Lives she'd touched and forgotten, continuing on making ripples she'd never known about. 47 people you saved directly, Silas said. But the math gets bigger, ma'am. Those 47 went on to help others, and those others helped more. We estimate that your acts of kindness have created a chain reaction affecting over 1,000 lives. Evelyn couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was hearing. That's impossible, she whispered. I just gave them food. Let them sleep here, that's all. That was everything, Isaac said from beside her. Ma'am, I've been on the receiving end of that kind of kindness. After I lost my son, after I came back from deployment, broken and angry, a stranger gave me a meal and didn't ask questions, didn't judge, just helped. It saved my life, made me want to live again. He wiped at his eyes roughly. I joined the Iron Angels because they were doing the same thing, helping lost veterans find purpose. And every time we helped someone, we'd tell them about the Angel of Montana, about you, about what one person can do if they just care enough. The room had gone very quiet. Only the crackling of the fire and the howl of the wind outside broke the silence. Evelyn looked down at the photograph in her hands, at her younger self smiling, standing next to a broken boy she'd fed and sheltered for 3 days. A boy who'd remembered her for 10 years. A boy who'd turned her small act of mercy into a legend. She thought about the gun in the lockbox, the suicide note on her kitchen table, the plan she'd made to end everything tonight because she thought she didn't matter anymore, thought she was invisible, forgotten, useless. 47 people, 1,000 lives, a legend she'd never known she'd become. I didn't know, she said. Her voice broke. I thought no one remembered. I thought it was all for nothing. Cole reached out and took her hand. His grip was weak but warm. We remember, he said, all of us. We've been searching for you, to thank you, to honor you, to make sure you knew that what you did mattered." Fresh tears spilled down Evelyn's cheeks, tears she'd been holding back for 15 years. Tears for Warren and Michael and every lonely night in this empty house. Tears for every traveler she'd helped and wondered about. Tears for the life she'd thought was meaningless. "I was going to die tonight," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. "Before you came, I was going to end it. I had the gun loaded. I was ready." Gasps around the room. Silas's face went white. "Tomorrow the bank takes my house," Evelyn continued. "I have nowhere to go. No money, no family. I thought there was no point anymore, that I'd done everything I could and it wasn't enough." She looked at Cole, then at Silas, then at all 20 men surrounding her. "You saved my life tonight," she said, "just by knocking on my door, just by needing help. You gave me a reason to keep living for one more night." Silas stood abruptly, walked to the window, stood there with his back to them, shoulders shaking. When he turned around, his face was wet with tears. "Ma'am," he said, his voice rough with emotion, 15 years ago I was in the same place you were tonight. Gun loaded, ready to end it. I'd come back from deployment with nothing left inside. Lost my family, lost my purpose, lost myself." He walked back toward her, each step deliberate. "And on the worst night of my life, in the middle of a different storm, I knocked on a door in Montana. A widow answered. She was older, kind eyes, gentle voice. She gave me soup, let me sleep in her barn. And before I left, she said something I've never forgotten." Evelyn's heart stopped. She said, "Son, you survived the war. Don't die in peace. The world still needs you." Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. She remembered. A night 15 years ago. Different storm. Different, desperate man at her door. Warren had helped her drag him into the barn when he collapsed hypothermic and drunk a loaded pistol in his jacket pocket. They'd warmed him, fed him, let him sleep it off. In the morning, she'd found him in the barn, the gun in his hands, staring at it. She'd said those words, and then he'd left, and she'd never known what happened to him. "You," she whispered, "that was you." Silas nodded. "That was me. Silas Blackwood, former Army Ranger, suicidal veteran with nothing to live for. You saved my life that night, ma'am." Your words echoed in my head for days, weeks, until I finally believed them. He knelt before her again. "I got sober, started attending veteran support groups, met other broken men like me, and together we formed the Iron Angels, a brotherhood for lost veterans, a family for people who had nowhere else to go." He gestured to the men around the room. "Every man here is alive because of what you started, because you showed mercy to one broken soldier 15 years ago, because you believed the world still needed him." Evelyn couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The weight of it was too much. "We've been searching for you," Silas said. "For 10 years, ever since Cole told me his story, I've been trying to find the woman who saved us both, trying to thank you, trying to tell you that you mattered more than you could ever know." He pulled out a radio from his jacket pocket. "Ma'am, with your permission, I need to make a call. There's someone who needs to know we found you." Evelyn could only nod. Silas clicked the radio. Static crackled. Then a voice came through, distorted by distance and weather, but clear enough. "Ghost, this is Steele. Go ahead." "Commander," Silas said, "we found her. The angel of Highway 90. It's really her." A long pause on the other end. Then a sound that might have been a chase or a laugh or both. "Confirmed," the voice said. "Confirmed. She saved me 15 years ago. She saved Cole 10 years ago. She's been helping travelers all along. It's her, Commander. It's really her." Another pause. Longer this time. "How far are you from Redemption Falls?" "We're there at her house. Storm trapped us." "Hold position. I'm making calls. Every chapter. Every angel in 5 states. We're coming." "Commander, she's in trouble. Bank's foreclosing tomorrow. She's about to lose everything." The voice on the other end went hard as steel. "Not anymore. We protect our own, and she's ours. She's been ours since the beginning. She just didn't know it. Tell her we're coming. Tell her the Iron Angels pay their debts." The radio clicked off. Silas looked at Evelyn. "Ma'am, before this night is over, you're going to understand exactly how much you matter." But Evelyn shook her head. "I don't need anything. I I just needed to know that it mattered, that the people I helped were okay. That's enough. It's not enough, Isaac said firmly. Ma'am, you're about to lose your home tomorrow. Where will you go? What will you do? Evelyn looked down at her hands, old hands, wrinkled and spotted and weak. I don't know, she admitted. I suppose a shelter somewhere, or maybe it's time to stop fighting. No, Cole said. His voice was strong now, despite his weakness. You don't get to give up, not after saving all of us, not after showing us that life is worth living. He struggled to his feet. Isaac tried to stop him, but Cole pushed him away. He swayed unsteady but remained standing. You saved me when I was 13, he said. You saved Silas when he was ready to die. You saved 47 others. You started a chain reaction that saved 1,000 more. You think we're going to let you lose your home? Let you give up. Let you die alone. He looked around at the other bikers. We're the Iron Angels. We're brothers. We take care of our own. And you, ma'am, you're the reason we exist. You're family. And family doesn't let family fall. Around the room, heads nodded. Voices murmured agreement. Evelyn felt something breaking open inside her chest. Some wall she'd built around her heart 15 years ago. Some barrier against hope and connection, and believing that she mattered to anyone. I have a son, she heard herself say. Michael, he lives in California. We haven't spoken in 12 years. He blames me for his father's death. She looked at Silas. Warren died saving someone. He was a firefighter, a paramedic, always helping people, always running into danger to pull others out. One night, a car accident in a storm. Warren went to help, had a heart attack while pulling someone from the wreckage, died right there on the highway. Her voice cracked. Michael said it was my fault. Said I taught Warren that strangers mattered more than family. That my obsession with helping people killed the man we both loved. And maybe he was right. He was wrong, Silas said. His voice was gentle but absolute. Ma'am, I lost my family too after I came back from war. My wife left, took my kids, said I'd changed, said the man who came home wasn't the man who'd left. He sat down heavily. I blamed myself for years. Thought I'd failed them. Thought I should have been able to just turn off the war and be normal again. But I couldn't. The things I'd seen, the things I'd done, they'd changed me forever. Other voices joined in. My daughter won't let me see my grandson, said one biker, a man with graying temples and sad eyes. Says I'm a bad influence because I ride. My parents disowned me when I joined the military, said another. Haven't spoken in 20 years. My brother died overseas. My family blames me for enlisting with him, for not keeping him safe, said a third, his voice thick with old grief. Story after story, loss after loss. Families broken by war, by distance, by misunderstanding, by the weight of trauma that civilians could never fully comprehend. We've all lost people, Silas said. We've all been blamed. We've all wondered if we were wrong to care about strangers. But here's what I know, ma'am. Your husband died doing what gave his life meaning. He died saving someone. There's honor in that. Tragedy, yes. Pain, absolutely. But honor, too. He met her eyes. And you've spent 15 years continuing his legacy, helping travelers, saving lives, keeping his spirit alive through your actions. That's not obsession. That's love. That's the highest form of love there is. Evelyn wiped at her eyes. I just wanted him to be proud of me, she whispered. Even after he was gone, I wanted to make him proud. So I kept helping people, kept his promise on. But I thought it didn't matter. Thought no one cared. Thought I was invisible. You were never invisible, Cole said. We saw you. We remembered you. We carried you with us. From his wallet still in his hand, he pulled out another item, a piece of paper folded small and worn soft from being handled. He unfolded it carefully. It was a note, written in childish handwriting, the letters uneven and uncertain. Thank you, angel lady. You saved my life. I will never forget you. I left this on the kitchen table the morning I ran, Cole said. Did you find it? Evelyn shook her head. I never saw any note. Must have blown away when I opened the door, Cole said. I wrote it because I needed you to know, needed you to understand that what you did mattered. He pressed the note into her hand. Now you know. It mattered. You mattered. You still matter. The wind howled outside, a sound like the world ending. But inside, warmth and light, in the presence of 20 men who'd been strangers an hour ago and now felt like something else, like family, like purpose, like the answer to prayer she hadn't dared to pray. Evelyn stood slowly. Her knees protested, but she ignored them. She walked to her bedroom, aware of 20 pairs of eyes following her. She opened the closet, took down the lockbox, brought it back to the living room, unlocked it. The gun lay inside, still loaded, still waiting. She picked it up, carried it to Silas. "I won't need this anymore," she said. Silas took it carefully, unloaded it, handed the bullets to Isaac. "No," he said, "you won't." Evelyn looked around the room at these men, these warriors, these broken souls who'd found each other and formed a brotherhood based on the kindness a stranger had shown them. "What happens now?" she asked. Silas smiled. It was the first smile she'd seen from him, and it transformed his scarred face into something almost beautiful. "Now," he said, "we wait for dawn, and when the sun rises, you're going to see what happens when the Iron Angels honor a debt." Outside, the storm began to ease. The wind's fury softened to a steady howl. Snow still fell, but without the violence of before. The night was passing, and Evelyn Thorne, who'd planned to die alone in the darkness, sat surrounded by people who knew her name, who valued her life, who'd been searching for her for 10 years. She wasn't invisible. She'd never been invisible. She'd been a legend all along. She just hadn't known it. Cole settled back against his pillows, his fever broken, his breathing easy. He looked at Evelyn and smiled. "Thank you," he said, "for saving me twice." "Thank you," Evelyn replied, "for reminding me why I'm still here." The fire crackled, the storm raged, and 21 people sat together in the small farmhouse waiting for morning, waiting for whatever came next. But for the first time in 15 years, Evelyn wasn't afraid. She was ready, ready to live, ready to matter, ready to see what tomorrow would bring. The hours passed in a strange suspension of time, as if the farmhouse existed in a bubble outside the normal flow of the world. Outside, the blizzard continued its assault, but with less ferocity, now winding down like a fighter who'd exhausted himself throwing punches. Inside, exhaustion finally claimed the bikers. One by one, they drifted into sleep. Some on the couch, others on the floor wrapped in the blankets Evelyn had distributed. The fire burned low, casting gentle orange light across their sleeping faces. Evelyn sat in Warren's chair, unable to sleep despite her bone-deep weariness. Too much had happened. Too much had changed. 4 hours ago, she'd been loading a gun. Now she sat surrounded by men who called her family, who'd been searching for her for years, who told her that her life had mattered more than she'd ever imagined. It was too much to process, too much to believe. But the photograph in her hands was real. Cole's sleeping form on her couch was real. The faces of these 20 men peaceful in sleep were real. She'd saved them, and they'd saved her. Silas sat awake near the window, keeping watch. His eyes met hers across the room. "You should sleep, ma'am," he said quietly. "So should you. Old habits? Someone needs to keep watch. You're not at war anymore. Some wars never end, ma'am. They just change battlefields." Evelyn understood that. 30 years in emergency medicine had taught her the same truth. The trauma didn't leave you. You just learned to live with it. "What happens in the morning?" she asked. "When the storm clears?" Silas looked out the window at the darkness and snow. "Commander Steele is making calls right now. Every chapter of the Iron Angels, from here to the Canadian border, from Montana to Wyoming to the Dakotas. He's calling in every favor, every debt, every brother who owes the Angels anything." "For what?" "For you." Evelyn shook her head. "I don't need—" "Yes, you do," Silas said, and there was no arguing with his tone. "Ma'am, you're about to lose your home. The bank takes possession at noon tomorrow. You have no money, no family support, nowhere to go. You need help, and we're going to give it to you." "I can't accept charity. It's not charity." Silas stood and walked over to her chair, knelt down so they were eye level. "Ma'am, do you understand what you are to us? You're not some random stranger we're helping out of pity. You're the foundation, the reason we exist. Every man who wears the Iron Angels patch does so because somewhere along the line, someone showed them mercy when they needed it most. And every single one of those acts of mercy traces back to you." He pulled his phone out again, opened it to a different app, showed her a tree diagram, branches spreading out in all directions. "We mapped it out," he said. "You saved me 15 years ago. After you saved me, I saved 6 others. Those 6 went on to save 32 more. Those 32 saved hundreds. And it keeps going, expanding, growing, all because one night you told a broken soldier that the world still needed him. Evelyn stared at the diagram at the exponential expansion of lives touched and changed. "This can't be right," she whispered. "It's conservative," Silas said. "We only track the people we could verify. The real number is probably much higher." He scrolled to another screen, a list of names, hundreds of them. "These are the Iron Angels," he said. "Current membership across 12 chapters in 5 states. Over 800 men, veterans mostly, some civilians, all of them lost. All of them found by someone who'd been shown mercy and wanted to pass it on." He looked at her intently. "You started this, ma'am. You planted a seed 15 years ago and it grew into a forest. You think we're going to stand by and let the woman who saved us all lose her home? Not a chance." Before Evelyn could respond, the radio crackled to life. "Ghost, this is Steele. Copy?" Silas picked up the radio. "Copy, Commander. Go ahead. Status update. Storm's breaking up. Roads should be passable by dawn. I've contacted all 12 chapters. We're mobilizing. Everyone who can ride is riding. ETA to your location 0800 hours." Silas glanced at Evelyn, then back at the radio. "How many, Commander?" A pause, then all of them ghost. "Every single angel who can swing a leg over a bike. We're bringing the whole family home." The radio clicked off. Silas looked at Evelyn. His eyes were bright with something that might have been tears, or might have been pride, or might have been both. "Ma'am," he said softly, "when the sun comes up, you are going to see something that hasn't happened in the history of the Iron Angels. Every chapter, every rider, every member coming together for one purpose: to honor you, to protect you, to make sure you know that you were never alone." Evelyn's hands shook. "How many people are you talking about?" "Commander said everyone who can ride," Silas said. "That's roughly 1,000 motorcycles, ma'am. Maybe more. 1,000 men on motorcycles. Coming here for her." "That's insane," she whispered. "That's family," Silas corrected. The weight of it crashed over her like a wave. 1,000 people coming to help her, to save her home, to honor a debt she hadn't known existed. "I don't deserve this," she said. "Yes, you do," Cole said from the couch. She hadn't realized he was awake. "Ma'am, you deserve this more than anyone I've ever known." Other men were stirring now, waking to the sound of conversation. Isaac sat up, rubbing his eyes. Others followed. "What's happening?" someone asked. "The family's coming," Silas said. "All of them." A murmur went through the room. Excitement, anticipation, something that felt almost like joy. Evelyn stood abruptly. "I need air." She walked to the front door, pulled it open. The cold hit her like a fist, but she needed it. Needed the shock of it to clear her head. The storm had lessened significantly. Snow still fell, but gently now, almost peacefully. The wind had died to a whisper. Above, through breaks in the clouds, she could see stars. Dawn was coming. She heard footsteps behind her. Silas joined her on the porch, pulling on his jacket. "You okay, ma'am?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "This is all, it's too much. I know it feels that way, but you need to understand something. For 10 years, we've been looking for you. For 10 years, every angel who heard Cole's story wondered if you were real. If the angel of Highway 90 actually existed, or if she was just a myth, we told ourselves to feel better." He looked out at the snow-covered fields. "Finding you tonight, it's like finding proof that grace exists, that kindness is real, that one person can make a difference. You're not just a woman who needs help, ma'am. You're the living proof of everything we believe in." Evelyn wiped at her eyes. "I was getting to kill myself tonight. Did I tell you that?" "You did. 4 hours before you knocked on my door, I had a loaded gun in my hand. I was ready. I'd written the note, made my peace with it." She turned to face him. "And then you came. 20 freezing men who needed help, who needed me. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I had a purpose again, like I mattered." Her voice broke. "You saved my life, Silas. All of you. Just by needing me." Silas's face was wet with tears now. "And you saved ours. Don't you see, ma'am? We saved each other. That's what family does." Inside, more men were waking. She could hear them moving around, talking quietly. Someone had added more wood to the fire. The smell of coffee drifted out through the open door. Coffee, Evelyn said. Where did that come from? Silas smiled. Isaac found some in your cupboard. Hope you don't mind. I thought I was out. You had one more can, hidden way in the back. Of course she did. Some part of her had been saving it, for what she didn't know, for a special occasion that never came, for a moment that mattered. This moment mattered. She went back inside, accepted a cup of coffee from Isaac. It was strong and hot and perfect. The simple pleasure of it brought fresh tears to her eyes. Around her, the bikers were preparing for the day, folding blankets, straightening furniture, trying to return her house to order. Leave it, she said. You don't need to clean up. Respect, ma'am, one of them said. You opened your home to us. Least we can do is leave it the way we found it. But they couldn't leave it the way they'd found it, Evelyn realized, because they'd found a house occupied by a woman who'd given up, who'd lost hope, who'd been ready to die. And now that woman was drinking coffee, surrounded by family she hadn't known she had, waiting for a dawn that promised something other than an ending. They'd already changed everything. The darkness outside began to soften, the absolute black of night giving way to the deep blue of pre-dawn. The snow had stopped completely now. The clouds were breaking up, revealing patches of clear scum. It was going to be a beautiful day. At 7:30, as the first light touched the eastern horizon, the sound came. Distant at first, so faint Evelyn thought she might be imagining it. But it grew, steady, rhythmic, the unmistakable rumble of multiple motorcycle engines. Silas stood and walked to the window, looked out, smiled. They're here, he said. Evelyn joined him at the window. In the distance, headlights, not 20 this time, hundreds. A river of light flowing down the highway toward Redemption Falls. Her hands started shaking again. This was real. This was actually happening. The sound grew louder. The rumble became a roar. And then as the sun broke over the horizon, painting the snow-covered world in shades of gold and pink, they came. Motorcycle after motorcycle, riding in tight formation, patches visible on leather jackets, iron angels, every one of them. They filled the road, turned onto her long driveway, kept coming and coming and coming. Evelyn's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor, watching through the window as what looked like an army descended on her small farmhouse. How many, she whispered. Silas was counting. At least 800, maybe more. Commander said everyone who could ride. Looks like he meant it. 800 motorcycles, 800 men, all coming here. For her. The lead rider stopped at her gate. The engines cut off in waves, the silence spreading backward through the massive group until the only sound was the wind and the crunch of snow under boots as men began to dismount. And then from the lead bike, a man stepped forward. Tall, broad-shouldered, gray hair visible beneath his helmet. He removed the helmet, and even from this distance, Evelyn could see his face was weathered and scarred, the face of a man who'd seen combat and survived. Commander Tobias Drummond, steel. He walked toward the house with purpose, his boots leaving deep prints in the fresh snow. The other riders followed, creating a human tide flowing toward her porch. Silas opened the door, stepped out. The 20 who'd spent the night with Evelyn followed, forming a line on her porch. Evelyn stood on shaking legs, walked to the door, looked out at the sea of leather and chrome and weathered faces. Commander Steele stopped at the bottom of her porch steps, looked up at her, and slowly, deliberately, he removed his gloves, took off his jacket patch, and held it over his heart. Then he knelt. One knee in the snow, head bowed. Behind him, 800 men did the same. A wave of motion rippling backward through the crowd. 800 men kneeling in the snow. 800 heads bowed for her. The silence was absolute, profound, sacred. Evelyn couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was seeing. Commander Steele raised his head. When he spoke, his voice carried across the snow-covered yard. Mrs. Evelyn Thorne, trauma nurse, lifesaver, angel of Highway 980. My name is Tobias Drummond. 15 years ago, you saved my life. Evelyn's knees buckled. Silas caught her, held her upright. Steele continued. I was hypothermic, drunk, suicidal. I had a loaded pistol and every intention of using it. You and your husband dragged me into your barn, warmed me, fed me, and when you found me the next morning with the gun in my hands, you said words I have never forgotten. He stood slowly. You said, son, you survived the war. Don't die in peace. The world still needs you. Tears ran down his weathered face. Those words changed everything. I got sober, found purpose, started the Iron Angels as a support network for lost veterans. Every man you see here exists because you believed the world still needed me. He gestured to the crowd behind him. We are 843 strong. Veterans mostly, some active duty, some retired. All of us lost at one point. All of us found by someone who'd been shown mercy and wanted to pass it on. And every single act of mercy in our history traces back to you. He walked up the porch steps, stood before Evelyn, looked into her eyes. Ma'am, we're here because we owe you a debt we can never fully repay. You saved my life. You saved Ghost's life. You saved Cole's life. You saved 47 travelers who went on to save thousands more. You started a chain reaction of kindness that has touched more lives than you will ever know. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. We understand that Montana First Bank is foreclosing on your property today, that you have until noon to vacate, that you have nowhere to go and no resources to fight them. He held out the envelope. We've taken care of it, ma'am. Your mortgage is paid in full. Your property taxes are current. Every debt you owe has been settled. The bank will be receiving notice within the hour that this property is no longer in foreclosure. Evelyn took the envelope with trembling hands, opened it. Inside documents, stamped paid in full, bank statements showing zero balance, property tax receipts. All of it real, all of it legal. How, she whispered. We took up a collection, Steele said simply. Every angel contributed what they could. Some gave money, some gave labor, some gave contacts and legal expertise. Together we raised enough to not only save your home, but to ensure you'll never face this situation again. He gestured to the crowd. But we didn't just come to pay your debts, ma'am. We came to give you what you deserve. Dignity, security, family, a legacy. He turned and raised his hand. At his signal, the crowd parted. Trucks drove through, pickup trucks loaded with lumber, vans full of tools, flatbeds carrying roofing materials. We're going to rebuild this place, Steele said. Not just fix what's broken, rebuild it properly. New roof, new barn, proper insulation, updated electrical, everything. More trucks, these ones carrying furniture, appliances, boxes labeled food and supplies. We're going to stock your pantry, update your kitchen, make sure you have everything you need, not for a year, for the rest of your life. Another vehicle pulled through, a cargo van. It parked near the barn, and when the back doors opened, Evelyn saw medical equipment, exam tables, diagnostic tools, pharmaceutical supplies. And we're going to convert your barn into a free clinic, Steele continued, staffed by our medical personnel, serving veterans and travelers who need help. Run by you if you are willing, or run in your name if you'd prefer to just supervise. He met her eyes again. We're not giving you charity, ma'am. We're giving you a purpose, a mission, a way to keep doing what you've always done, but with support, with resources, with family backing you up. Evelyn couldn't speak, couldn't form words. The enormity of it was crushing and liberating at the same time. Why, she finally managed. Steele smiled. Because you're worth it, ma'am. Because you matter. Because what you give comes back. You taught me that, and now we're proving it to you. He stepped back, raised his voice so everyone could hear. Brothers, sisters, we have work to do. The crowd erupted into motion. Men and women swarmed toward the house in barn tools and hand organization emerging from what looked like chaos. Someone had a blueprint. Someone else was directing traffic. Teams formed. Leaders emerged. The 800 Angels transformed into a coordinated construction crew. Evelyn stood on her porch watching her property transform before her eyes. Hammers rang, saws whined, voices called out measurements and instructions, the morning air filled with the sounds of purposeful labor. Silas stood beside her. This is going to take all day, he said. Maybe into tomorrow. You might want to sit down, maybe eat something. I can't, Evelyn said. I need to help. Ma'am, there are 800 angels out there. I think we've got it covered. But it's my house. Exactly. So let us honor you by doing this for you. You've spent your whole life helping others. Today, let others help you. Evelyn watched a team of 20 men strip the old roof off her barn in less than 30 minutes. Another team was already measuring for the new one. It was like watching time-lapse photography. I should feed them, she said suddenly. They're working so hard. They must be hungry. Steele, who'd been standing nearby coordinating teams, turned to her. Food trucks are coming, ma'am. We've arranged for catering. 3 hot meals today for everyone. You don't need to worry about anything. But I want to help. Steele studied her face, saw the need in her eyes, the lifetime habit of serving others that wouldn't let her just sit and watch. Actually, he said, there is something you could do. The medical team is setting up the clinic in your barn. They could use someone with your expertise to help organize it, someone who knows how a proper ER should function. Evelyn's eyes lit up. Purpose, something she could contribute. Yes, she said. Yes, I can do that. She walked toward the barn, moving through the crowd of workers. Every person she passed stopped what they were doing, nodded to her. Some touched their caps. Others put their hands over their hearts, showing respect, showing honor. Inside the barn, the transformation was already underway. The old hay bales and broken equipment had been cleared out. Clean medical equipment was being unloaded and arranged. A woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and capable hands was directing the setup. She saw Evelyn and smiled. Mrs. Thorne, I'm Patricia. I was an Army nurse, served 3 tours. I heard you were ER trauma for 30 years. County General, Evelyn confirmed. Perfect. We could use your input on the layout. We want this to be a fully functional urgent care clinic. Nothing major, but enough to handle common emergencies, minor trauma, chronic care for veterans who can't afford regular doctors. For the next 4 hours, Evelyn lost herself in the familiar work of organizing medical space. Exam rooms here, supply closets there, waiting area by the door, triage station up front. She knew this. This was her world, her expertise. Patricia deferred to her experience, and soon other medical personnel were coming to Evelyn with questions. Where should the crash cart go? How should they organize the pharmaceutical supplies? What protocols should they establish for patient privacy? Evelyn answered every question with confidence. This was what she'd done for 30 years. This was who she was. She was needed. She mattered. She was home. Outside, the work continued. Teams rotated through shifts. Some worked while others rested. Food arrived as promised. 3 catering trucks set up serving lines, providing hot meals to everyone. The organization was military precise, which made sense given that most of the angels were veterans. By noon, when the bank was supposed to take possession of the property, the roof on the house was completely replaced. By 2 p.m., the barn's exterior was rebuilt. By 4 p.m., the fence was repaired and repainted. Evelyn emerged from the barn clinic around 3 in the afternoon, exhausted but energized. She looked around at her property. It was unrecognizable. The sagging barn stood straight and true, through its new roof gleaming in the afternoon sun. The house looked like something from a magazine, fresh paint and new shutters in a porch that no longer creaked. The fence ran straight and strong around the property. Even the driveway had been graded and graveled. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's not done, Steele said, appearing at her elbow. We'll work through the night if we have to. Tomorrow morning, this place will be better than new. You've already done too much. Not even close, ma'am. As the sun began to set, painting the snow-covered mountains in shades of purple and orange, vehicles began arriving from town. Evelyn recognized them. Lorraine Pritchard's car, the mayor's truck, Sheriff Hastings' patrol vehicle, others from Redemption Falls. They parked at a distance watching, uncertain. Some looked ashamed. Steele noticed them too. Your neighbors, he said. They've been watching all day. Some want to help. Some just want to apologize. Most are just trying to understand what's happening. Evelyn looked at the small crowd of townspeople. People who'd ignored her for 15 years, who'd gossiped about her, who'd let her fall into debt and poverty without lifting a finger. Part of her wanted to turn away, to let them see what real community looked like, to show them what they'd failed to be. But another part, the part that had spent 43 years helping people, The part that Warren had nurtured and encouraged, that part couldn't turn away. "Invite them in," she said to Steele. "They're hungry too. There's enough food." Steele smiled. "Yes, ma'am." He walked toward the townspeople, spoke to them briefly, and gestured toward the serving line. Hesitantly, they approached. Lorraine first, then others. Lorraine walked up to Evelyn, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand what you were doing all those years. I thought you were just being foolish. But this?" She gestured at the hundreds of bikers that transformed property, the evidence of Evelyn's impact. "You changed the world," Lorraine whispered, "and I was too blind to see it." Evelyn could have been angry, could have held the grudge, could have turned away, but Warren's voice was in her head. "What we give comes back, Evie." "It's okay," she said to Lorraine. "I understand." And she did. She understood that most people live small lives focused on their own concerns, unable to see the ripples their actions created. She'd been the same way once before. Warren taught her differently. "Would you like some coffee?" Evelyn asked. "I think someone made a fresh pot." Lorraine nodded, still crying. Evelyn led her toward the house, and as they walked, other townspeople approached, apologizing, offering to help, trying to make amends for years of neglect. Evelyn accepted each apology with grace, not because they deserved it, but because that's who she was. That's who Warren had taught her to be. As night fell, work lights were set up. The construction continued. True to Steele's word, the angels worked through the darkness. Evelyn watched from her new porch, drinking coffee, wrapped in a warm blanket someone had given her. Cole came and sat beside her. He was still weak, but the fever was gone. Isaac had declared him out of danger. "How are you feeling?" Evelyn asked. "Better, thanks to you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the organized chaos of construction. "Ma'am," Cole said eventually, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you help me 10 years ago, I mean?" "You didn't know me. I was just some runaway kid. You could have called the police. Should have called the police. Why didn't you?" Evelyn thought about it. "I saw my son in you," she said finally. "Michael was about your age when I last saw him, and I thought if Michael was out there somewhere scared and alone, I'd want someone to help him, to feed him, to show him kindness." She looked at Cole. "You weren't just some runaway kid. You were someone's son, someone's hope, someone's future, and you deserve to be treated with dignity." Cole wiped at his eyes. "I'm going to find him," he said. "Your son, Michael. I'm going to find him and tell him what an amazing mother he has." "You don't have to." "Oh, ma'am, I want to. You gave me a family when I had none. The least I can do is try to give yours back to you." Evelyn squeezed his hand. "Thank you." The night wore on. Evelyn finally fell asleep in her chair, exhausted beyond measure. Someone covered her with an extra blanket. Someone else made sure the coffee stayed hot. When she woke, the sun was rising again, and her property was transformed completely. The house gleamed. The barn stood proud. The clinic was functional and fully stocked. The fields had been cleared and fenced. Even a small garden plot had been prepared for spring planting. 800 angels stood in formation in her yard. Behind them, their motorcycles were lined up in perfect rows. Commander Steele stood on her porch. When he saw she was awake, he smiled. "Good morning, ma'am. We're finished." Evelyn stood slowly, staring at the impossible transformation. This was her property, but it was also somehow more than that. It was a testament, a legacy, proof that kindness matters, that small acts create infinite ripples. Steele handed her a set of documents. "Property deeds, all updated. We've also established a trust fund in your name, enough to cover property taxes and living expenses for the rest of your life. The clinic will operate under its own funding, staffed by volunteer angels on rotating schedules. You can be as involved or as hands-off as you want." He handed her something else, a leather jacket. On the back, embroidered in silver thread, was a pair of angel wings. Above them, the words, "The Angel of Highway 90. Below them, Founding Mother. "Honorary Iron Angel," Steele said, "if you'll accept it." Evelyn took the jacket with shaking hands. Put it on. It fit perfectly. Around her, 800 voices rose in unison. "Welcome home." And Evelyn Thorne, 72 years old, former ER nurse, widow, forgotten woman legend, she'd never known she was finally understood. She'd spent her whole life helping strangers, teaching them that kindness matters, that people matter, that what we give comes back. And now, standing in front of her rebuilt home surrounded by 800 people whose lives she'd touched, without knowing it, she saw the truth Warren had tried to teach her all those years ago. What we give comes back. Not always from the same people, not always in the same form, but it comes back, multiplied, magnified, transformed into something greater than we ever imagined. The Iron Angels mounted their bikes. Engines roared to life. One by one, they rode past her porch, each rider saluting as they passed, showing respect, showing honor, showing love. It took an hour for all of them to ride past, an hour of continuous engines and salutes and tears running down Evelyn's face. When the last bike disappeared down the road, silence fell. But it wasn't the lonely silence she'd known for 15 years. It was the peaceful silence of completion, of purpose fulfilled, of a life that mattered. Silas Cole Isaac and the original 20 who'd knocked on her door that storm night remained. "We're staying," Silas said, "if that's okay with you. We've been assigned to this clinic. We'll staff it, maintain it, run it, with your guidance." Evelyn nodded. She couldn't speak. Too much emotion choked her throat. "Also," Cole added, "I made some calls last night to California." Evelyn's heart stopped. "You found Michael." "Better than that, ma'am. I told him everything. About the angels, about what his mother did, about how she saved us all, and he—" Cole's voice broke. "He's on a plane. Should be here tomorrow morning. He wants to see you. Wants to apologize. Wants to come home." Evelyn collapsed. Silas and Cole caught her, held her while she sobbed. 15 years of grief and loneliness and pain poured out of her. Her home was saved. Her purpose was restored. Her family was coming back. And she had a new family, 800 strong, who would never let her be forgotten again. Later that day, she walked to Warren's grave at the edge of the property, knelt down beside the simple headstone, placed Commander Steele's glove on top of it next to the flowers someone had left. "You were right," she whispered. "What we give comes back. It took 15 years, but it came back, multiplied beyond anything I could imagine." The wind rustled through the trees, and for just a moment, Evelyn could have sworn she heard Warren's voice. "I told you so, Evie. I told you so, Mom." She smiled through her tears, stood, looked back at her property, at the gleaming buildings, at the clinic that would serve hundreds, at the home that would welcome travelers for years to come, at the legacy she'd built without knowing it. Evelyn Thorne had planned to die alone and forgotten. Instead, she'd become a legend, a mother to hundreds, the beginning of a movement that would outlive her by generations. And tomorrow her son was coming home. Tomorrow and all the tomorrows after she would live. She would serve, she would matter. Because that's what angels do. Even the small ones, especially the small ones.